Thank you. Welcome. Hello, hello. Good to see everybody this evening. How you guys doing? Yeah, pretty good. A lovely day outside. Thank you for spending it inside with us. First timers. How many first timers? Decent amount of first timers. Okay, how about keep those hands up for me, will you, if you don't mind? All right, I need 6, other than the speakers, 6 brave souls to come up to the stage. 6 brave souls. Come on. There's 1, 2. I need brave souls. I need 6 brave souls so far. They are all 6 brave lady souls. Okay. So, hold on. No. Whoa, no. Come on. No, it's fine. No, come on. It's fine. It's totally fine. We got room for one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I don't want to disclude you. No, you're fine. No. You're good. It's totally fine. Okay, so tonight, obviously, you know it's animal behavior, right? So I have T-shirts that can be earned, if you will. So animal behavior. So you two, and you 3 are going to be competing against each other. Now, the first animal that you must behave like to see which one does it better is an ostrich. Love it. Love it. Love it. Bonus points if either one of you put your head in a bag like you're putting in a hole. I don't know. You don't have to do it. Okay, perfect. Yes, good job. Okay, so which one do you think is a better ostrich? 1? Yeah, 1 or 2? Okay, we'll hang on to that. All right. I'm thinking seals. Yeah. Love it. We're live streaming this. Okay. Wow. All right. This just hit me to do this like 5 minutes before, and this is like the best idea in the 5 years we've done this. Okay. Seal number 1. Seal number 2. All right. Okay. We'll hang on to that. Okay. All right, let's see. Aren't you glad that you stayed? Okay, nope. I'm thinking gorilla. Yeah, looking good. I love it. Fantastic. Okay, gorilla number 1. Yeah, pretty good. Number 2. And number 3. Well, I appreciate you all coming up here and doing that, so I'm going to give you all a T-shirt. I hopefully you guys knew that was coming. Feel free to dig through. There's various arrangements, sizes, but they're all the same design. Thank you all for participating. And we often wonder why, when I ask how many people are new this evening, that the hands continue to be a lot, because people don't come back when I put them through stuff like this. So we've solved that mystery. Well, again, welcome to Animal Behavior, RTP180 style. For those of you who are new this evening, tonight goes a little something like this. We bring in experts in the field of animal behavior. They get 5 minutes to tell us what they're up to, what they've worked on, their passions, their dreams, everything. In 5 minutes. They're scared about the 5 minutes. It's fine. We're a little lenient. But you know what? I started going through my little spiel, but it's okay. I'm just going to keep on going. So at the 5-minute mark, they will hear a triangle girl make a ding. And that is me going ding at the 5-minute mark. That does not mean that they have to get off the stage and that their time is up. That just means your 5 minutes is quote unquote up. If you have another point or two, they're welcome to make it. And then after they are done with their talks, we will do 2 questions from the audience. Disclaimer, if your dog is sick or your cat is sick at home, this is not the time to ask that question, what's wrong with my dog or cat? Take it to a vet. Right now. Okay? Everybody got that? And then, of course, you guys have been good so far, really good. But just try to keep the talking to a minimum on the sides, in the back, on the left. If you are wanting to carry on a conversation, we ask that you step out or just tweet to each other or something. Speaking of tweeting, we are very active every night on Twitter. RTP, pays attention, retweets, tweets good things, the Frontier, all sorts of stuff. So if you use the hashtag RTP180 and tweet out, that will help everybody else kind of see online what we're all talking about online. And of course, throughout the evening, I tell a joke or two. So it never fails. One person is excited, and that's it. Okay, I'll hit you with one. And of course, they're all going to be animal themed. So why don't seagulls fly over the bay? Because they'd be bagels. I think there's a delay on the microphone, that second delay before you got there. Did I cover everything? I want to make sure that I got everything. Yes, I think I did get everything. Be respectful, don't talk, 5 minutes, 2 questions, have some fun, tweet online. Yeah? You guys ready? All right. First up, we have Dr. Barbara Sherman. She is the clinical professor of veterinary behavior at the NC State College of Veterinary Medicine. There, she directs the behavioral medicine clinic, teaches animal behavior to veterinary students and residents, and conducts clinical research. She is past president of the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists and president-elect of the American College of Animal Welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Barbara Sherman. Should be good to go. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Waiting for my moment. So I will start. At North Carolina State, I am director of the behavioral medicine service. So we see patients who are pets who have behavior problems. Here we go. And my next slide.
You're good. Hey, we'll stall.
We'll
This won't count
stall.
against you.
Okay.
I normally don't
So.
do t-shirts at the end, but I can do t-shirts now and stall.
Okay.
Or do you want to wing it?
Oh, I can wing it. I can.
One person said tell a joke. I don't think that's too much work.
Okay, well, I'm going to wing it because you said talk about your passion. So I'm going to talk about my passion before I show you any slides of animals. We'll see if it pops up. But basically what we do in the behavioral medicine service is to help clients people like yourselves, who really love their pets, but maybe their pet has a behavior problem that may be about to get them evicted from their apartment or divorced or changing requirement to change their lifestyle or something, some incompatibility, or even sometimes more of a pathology that is really disrupting what we call the human-animal bond. So the connection that those of you who have pets really understand. It's that remarkable relationship that we have with pets, and especially dogs. So I'm going to be talking about dogs, as will our next speaker and a few others. And dogs have a remarkable ability and sort of an intuitive ability to understand us, and we understand them in many ways, right? And yet, many of our clients tell me that they often come in and they say, my dog is so smart. You know, he knows I put on these shoes, he knows we're going running, he's all excited. If I put on those shoes, he knows I'm going to work, he goes and mopes in the corner. He has this sort of intuition about our life together that is wonderful, but I can't teach him not to be afraid. And animals are often afraid of things, whether it's anything from the vacuum cleaner to the thunderstorm to strangers. So especially dogs that have come up through shelters may have only seen one small corner of the world, and it may not be the world that you inhabit or that is inhabited by people they don't know. And so we struggle with trying to say to our dog, it's okay, right? We use that line a lot. It's okay. This is a nice person. It's okay. It's only a thunderstorm. It's okay. And so that, but it doesn't really help. And so what can we do to help these wonderful creatures that we often bond with so intently and intensively to be less fearful? So there's that connection that can be disrupted by just the pragmatics of having a dog that may be very fearful. But there's also a welfare component. That is, the well-being of an animal is really impaired by being fearful. And we all know that, right? We've all been anxious. We've all been afraid. And we hate to see that. It pains us to see that in a creature that we have a great connection to. Oh, well, look at that. So my passion, I think, is to try to help remedy that conundrum that folks like you, like me, often face when we care for pets. So what we spend our time doing is solving the behavior problems of pet dogs. And in that process, I do want to point out, these are my I'm sorry, I may have clicked it. But these are my colleagues, and I want to mention Dr. Kat Pankratz, who is a resident in behavior, and she was the seal on the floor. So, and Liz McAfee, our technician. So, and another reason that we really want to solve behavior problems is behavior problems are actually a cause of many deaths of pets in the United States, because animals with behavior problems are commonly relinquished to animal shelters. And when they're relinquished to animal shelters, many of them may actually not be able to be adopted out, and they may be euthanized. And so part of our goal in the work that we do is to save animal lives. And part of our goal is, as I mentioned, to preserve and protect the human-animal bond, that deep connection that we have with animals. This is one of our clients in our clinic. It was really a favorite client named Luther. And Luther had separation anxiety. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. But Luther's mom, as we were telling her in the clinic about what we were going to do to help Luther and how we could assist in solving the problem, and we would explain it to Luther's owner, and Luther's owner would then turn to Luther and say, now Luther, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work together to do this. And Luther would have this look on his face that you can see there, kind of priceless. And this went on for a half an hour, that Luther was fully instructed in the protocol. And we know, you guys know this, right? I won't ask for a show of hands. How many of you talk to your pets as though they were people? How many of you consider your pets to be family? Of course, right? And I know all of you grieve over pet loss, right? But on the other hand, depending on the survey and how the questions are asked, 40 to 90% of people admit, confess, oh yes, oh my pet does have at least one behavior problem or more. Okay. So what are we going to do about that? Some behavior problems we can overlook, right? But others we may not be able to overlook. So dogs, of course, have teeth and they have claws and they can rapidly do a lot of destruction. And why might they do that? And one of the reasons is what we call separation anxiety. And separation anxiety is really the distress that the animal, the dog in this case, really undergoes in trying to reunite with the owner when the dog is left alone. So the behavioral signs are listed here, and they are urination, defecation, vocalization, all the things that you don't really want your dog to do in your home, but also that you don't want your dog to experience from a welfare perspective. And the studies have really shown that somewhere between 15 and 20% of dogs that see veterinarians suffer to some degree from this disorder. And our lifestyle, all of you out here, certainly mine, we're gone a lot, right? We're busy. We have trouble sometimes meeting the needs of our pets. So here's a case. This is Deuce, a 3-year-old male neutered rescue dog, and he was adopted by a person who just gotten his PhD, got his first teaching job. He wanted to have a companion. He got his rental house, and he went to his first day at work and came home to this. So not only was he really worried about, he just lost his security deposit, but he was also concerned with the carpet tax and the dog, his mouth was bleeding. And so this was the other view. And not only that, but the dog had gone through the plate glass window in the living room and was sitting on the front porch when he came home. And so this was a really difficult situation. So he went to get expert advice on the internet, and so his advice was to build a pen for him in the garage. So he built this very nice sturdy pen and put him in the pen, and so the second day he came home from work, well, it was a few weeks later, this is what he did, and the dog had broken a couple of his teeth and damaged his face. And of course, when he's home, when the owner was home, the dog was never destructive. So this was only when he was left alone. So how do we treat separation anxiety? We treat separation anxiety in a multimodal approach. So I just want to give you a little overview of this. Basically, we try to create an environment in which the dog can be comfortable for a time. And that might be sometimes we even have to take them or send them to doggy daycare, get them out of the environment until we can get things managed. We do positive behavior modification and stop any punishment that's being done to the dog. And the positive behavior modification often has to do with independence training, where we train and condition the dog to be calm, a distance from the owner, and then we use methods to gradually help the dog be calm as the owner moves further and further away. And this is a case in which we do often use anti-anxiety medications to try to relieve the dog's distress when the owner is gone. So here we see the happy outcome of this scenario, that we were able to manage this dog's separation anxiety with this multimodal approach, and they lived happily ever after. My colleagues and I have written a book about the positive methods. If you are interested in more specifics about treatment or have a specific behavior problem with your pet, your dog, it's called Decoding Your Dog. It's by my colleagues at the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists. And I just did want to, do we have time? Yeah? Oh, I got carte blanche because okay. So I was just going to show you to give you a little more flavor for how distressing it is. This is an example of a dog with separation anxiety. So it was owned by a couple who had been doing some work overseas. They became enraptured with a local dog and brought that dog home. It was loving, mannerly, wonderful in every way, but had a problem. And the dog, in fact, did have separation anxiety, and so they thought, well, put him in a crate where we can manage things, And this is what it looked like. So if you can run this video. And this is a little maybe disquieting. Okay, it's not going to run. This is where I say it ran perfectly on my computer at home. Those of you who speak know that, how that works. But in any case, what this would show if it did run, I'm sorry, we just had it running, is that this dog was confined to a crate because it, in fact, it's a very well house-trained dog, but it urinates, defecates, chews on the bars, and gives distress vocalizations while the owners are gone. And I don't know if the next one might run. Maybe not. No, this is under cover of darkness. So this is the after video in which the dog is out of the crate. So once we can get this problem managed, we like to get dogs out of the confinement crate because it's so restrictive, and the dogs then have the opportunity to find resting places of comfort and so on. And so the after video just shows the dog at the door sort of saying goodbye to the owner in a sad little way, and then he looks around and goes and lies on the couch. So thank you very much.
Okay, 2 questions. I saw a hand there and a hand over there. First 2 that I saw.
I have 2 questions, if it's okay.
Is that
I have a
cheating?
dog with separation anxiety. What can I say? So a crate isn't a nurturing, comforting place. You know, they say crates, like dogs like to go
It's
to
a
their
den.
crates.
It's what you read. A crate is like a den. Dogs love their crates, but
Not if they have
in general,
separation.
dogs with separation anxiety. Of course, we have to get them where they're not urinating, defecating, and destroying your house or going through your front windows. But once we get the problem managed, our goal is generally to get them out of the excessive confinement. They actually will do much better.
And my second question is a second dog helpful
Oh,
to a
that's a
dog
good question.
with separation anxiety?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Wouldn't you think that what these dogs need is a buddy? And in fact, we really don't typically see dogs that are raised, like 2 puppies raised together, 2 siblings raised together with separation anxiety. However, we see many cases, and we have done a number of different studies of separation anxiety in which we actually see it's multiple dogs in the household, and only 1 dog is affected with separation anxiety. And we videotape the dogs and we can see it. And we also have a lot of clients who say that very thing, well, I'm going to go find him the perfect companion. I always think of it as, it's kind of like going to college and you get assigned your first roommate, right? And what's the chance that's going to be your BFF? So it generally is not, we just don't recommend it as a strategy to solve the problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how much of your work is pet psychology and how much of it is human psychology?
Wow. That's a really good question. What I think we do actually is we look at the entire family and the family unit and the family lifestyle, and we're trying to help the pet and family have a long, happy life together. And we're really concerned about the welfare and well-being of each living creature in the house, and so, or home or apartment, that are cohabitating together. And so we look at the welfare of the dog, we look at the safety of the children, we look at the fact that I had a case yesterday and the wife was sleeping on the couch to provide company and to help the dog, and the husband was sleeping in the bed, and And the wife said, you know, my husband's not too happy with this arrangement. I was like, so I think I think of us as treating the family unit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry we had so much trouble with all that. She was a trooper. Nice work pulling all that together. All right. Moving right along, Dr. Margaret Gruen is a veterinarian and board-certified veterinary behaviorist. She is currently a postdoctoral fellow with the Canine Cognition Center at Duke University. There you are.
Hello, Duke. Thank you. Do I have slides? Okay. Go. Oh, I can. Oh, sorry. There it is. I got too excited. So I've known Dr. Sherman a long time. She trained me, and I knew that the only possible chance I had of keeping your attention after she spoke would be to talk about puppies. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of the work that we're doing using cognition to predict success in assistance dogs. So you all know assistance dog programs raise and train dogs to serve in a bunch of different jobs. So we have dogs that are seeing eye dogs, that are wheelchair assistance dogs, emotional support dogs, sense dogs, and dogs that help with veterans with PTSD. But the cost of training and raising these puppies is really high. It's a resource-intensive program, and they can cost up to $50,000 per dog, and up to 60% of them don't go on to be service dogs, depending on what they're being raised for. So you can imagine that that's a pretty expensive loss for these organizations. So there's been a push for early identification of successful dogs. So if we could take a group of puppies like this and figure out which ones are going to be the stars, right, we would save a lot of resources for these organizations, and we'd be able to let those dogs that are not going to be successful as guide dogs go into homes sooner. But so far, most of the attempts at this have had pretty mixed results. Differences have been found looking at sort of temperament or personality traits, some of them that are stable over time, but often not predictive. And so cognitive testing offers us a really remarkable chance to look at whether cognitive profiles are associated with success and maybe build on some of the other behavioral traits that are indicators. And there is some evidence to support this approach. So work that's been done in our lab with IED detecting dogs. So these are dogs that go out into war zones and sniff out IEDs. Work with them showed that spatial memory and the use of human social cues was associated with training and in-field success. And the use of human social cues was low in dogs with off-leash handling issues. And you can imagine these dogs have to work in these very large areas. So if they have hard time with handling issues, that's a problem. And I have human social cues in blue to remind me to tell you what I mean by that, which is this is going to eat up so much of my minutes. If I have something you really want, like some chocolate, and I hide that chocolate, pretend you didn't hear that, and now you want that chocolate, and I say, most people are going to go there, and they're going to find the chocolate. Children do that really well. People do that really well. Turns out that our closest relatives, chimps and bonobos, don't do that very well, but dogs do that really well, and that's pretty important. They are very in tune with our social cues. The seeking of human help in an unsolvable task was also associated with the best training outcomes. So it does look like a cognitive approach may help us. And there's some new evidence using fMRI in awake assistance dog candidates that also looks like a cognitive approach may be useful, particularly in kind of impulse control. So it's pretty exciting stuff. So if we want to do this now in puppies, we have some new questions that come up, right? So would the same features predict success for assistance dogs? These guys, the IED detecting dogs, they're very different from the dogs that you want around your kids. They're high drive, they're very excited. So maybe not the best as assistance dogs. Can we adapt these cognitive profiles to be appropriate for puppies? what age is the most appropriate for testing the puppies, and if the results are a success, then are these traits heritable? So can we even go further back up the chain? So I'll show you a little bit about what we've been doing. So the first part was adaptation of the game, so changing the tasks so that we could do them with puppies. So this is an example of what our experimental setup usually looks like, but with these little guys, we've got to make it smaller, and we miniaturize a whole bunch of stuff. So now we're kneeling on the ground as experimenters. We're using little cups instead of big cups. We are at shorter distances, and we're down on the floor with these guys. We have to figure out what treats they like the best, what motivates them, so we work through a whole bunch of different treats. We go through peanut butter and Zooks and all these things, and you know what puppies work best for? Puppy food. It took a long time to come around to that. We also have to figure out how many tasks we can do. How much can we ask these little guys to do so that we can both not exhaust them, but also get usable data. The appropriate age part turns out to be a little bit trickier. We can manage all those logistical things, but we have feasibility concerns because when they're 6 weeks old, they need to sleep a lot.
Ding.
They'll play with you for a minute and then they have to go to sleep. We also need to look at whether they're really cognitively ready. So how mature is their brain? So this is our approach. We have a 3-day battery, whole bunch of different tasks that we put them through. We look at puppies that we test every single week to look at learning, and we have puppies that we test once at a later age. And we've partnered with this great group, Paws for People, that raises assistance dogs in this area. So I'm gonna show you 2 quick videos. I'm gonna hope that they play. So this one we can skip right to. This is an example of a puppy using social cues. So here we go. I do a better job hiding the food for him. Good job. So that's an example of a dog using human social cues. The next is an example of an unsolvable task. So in this task, don't jump yet. In this task, we first put the dog through a series of solvable situations where we put the food in the bowl and then they can displace the lid and get the food, and then we make it unsolvable. So now all of a sudden it's sealed, and we look at what's their strategy. Do they keep trying to get at it, or do they ask for help? What do they do? So now you can jump ahead to the bookmark. So here we go. This is the start of one of the unsolvable trials. Right, I know, we're so mean. It's terrible. It gets worse. Help me, human. Can't you help me? Do you see there's food here? See, I can see this food here. Can you help me? Then we do. We eventually do. Thank you. So, now that we've kind of picked our age, we know that they can do all these things as they get closer to 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. Now our job is to test a whole bunch of them as puppies. We've figured out our battery and then test them again at social maturity. So when they come back in to be trained. We're also looking at wolf puppies of the same kind of age to determine how many of these things, different features in cognition, could be due to domestication. And then we're also continuing our work with the Paws for People puppies in this area. And that's it. I can take a couple questions.
Sorry, I was wiping my eyes from the poor little puppy.
I know. I don't
Pass
look
around
like
a
that, you know,
box of
person.
Kleenex here in a second. 2, okay, I see 1, 2, okay.
So that was all really cute. So that video you just showed of the puppy that looked up and said, "Hey, can you help me open this?"
Yep.
That's very much like toddlers, like human toddlers.
Yes.
That know that their parents will or should help them. So how much do you use in your research, I guess, the data from human children and relate it to puppies?
Great question. That's a great question. So did everybody hear it? About using sort of developmental tests, cognitive tests, in these puppies. We use it a lot. That's the literature base that we look at, as well as looking at the dog literature and rodent literature to some extent. But really, if you can do it in a 2-3-year-old kid, you can do it in a dog. So those are the tests that we tend to adapt. And you're right, that looking up, some kids and some dogs will have a different strategy where they'll keep trying to get at it. But that sort of help seeking is one of the features that we see in these puppies.
So yep. So it's actually a very similar question actually about the same puppy. So the puppies that sit there and ask for help versus puppy that will like try to tear the lid off, are the chances better for one of those over the other?
That is the
for
question
being a
yet
service?
to be answered.
Okay.
So that's what it looked like. So we count the seconds that they spend looking. That's what it looked like in the adult dogs. And that's the kind of thing that we need to understand about puppies. Does that same thing happen? And it's interesting because we tested them week after week after week. That staring doesn't come online until about 9 weeks. It's really interesting. So that is yet to be answered. Maybe I'll come back. All right, thank you.
I thought you were going to do a magic trick when you were... You had my attention. No, it's fine. I've said this one before, so if you know it, let the other folks marinate on it for just a second. But what do you call a cow without legs? Ground beef. What do you mean, oh? That was solid. It was like, has to be top 10. Maybe. No? All right, fine. What do you call an alligator in a vest? Investigator. You got to follow that, Clint. I'm sorry. Clint is a postdoctoral scholar at NC State University and the NC Museum of Natural Sciences who studies the wildlife of cities. Love it. You ready? All right. Please help me welcome Clint to the stage. There you go, sir.
All right. Well, you have to bear with me. We're going to transition from puppies to insects. So when I first became a biologist, I thought what I needed to do was save up my money, buy the most expensive plane ticket I could afford, and fly to some remote jungle someplace. And that's where the big discoveries were made. And that's great. So if you have a chance to do that, you should. But what I realize now is that we can actually make really big discoveries right outside in our backyard. So since that time, I've been working in cities. And if you work in a city in the United States, you work in New York. So New York is our largest and most densely populated city. There's 8.3 million people who live in New York. But they're actually outnumbered. They're outnumbered by ants. So there are 16 billion ants that live in New York. So that means that there are 2,000 ants for every human. Sounds like a lot, right? Think about that. One of my friends came back and said, "Is that like a teacup full of ants or something?" Like, I don't know. I was like, "Okay, you're right. It's like a teacup full of ants." But still, there's a lot of ants in New York for being the amount of concrete it is. But there's not just a lot of insects and stuff that live in these cities, but they can actually be diverse. So we've been working in New York for like 5 or 6 years now, and we've collected 40 different species. These are the headshots of the ones that live just in Manhattan. And so this is comparable. This is comparable to if we went to like the Adirondack Mountains, some natural habitat outside New York, you'd expect to find somewhere 40, 50 ant species. And these are living in the cities. But of these, not all of them are a real urban species. So most of them we find in some of the natural kind of forested areas of Central Park, some other parks that are in the northern end of Manhattan. But there's only a subset of these that are actually living in most parts of the city. There's about 6 species. And so one of our questions is, what makes an urban ant? What is it about these 6 species that make them able to live on the sidewalk in all these different places? So when I talk about urban areas in New York, this is one of our field sites. So this is a highly urban area. It's slightly different than a park. This is Broadway, and there are these street traffic islands, basically, that run up and down Broadway, and so there's traffic on either side of them. They're kind of like miniature green spaces. People can sit on benches at either end. There's a trash can near them. But what we know is that there's a heck of a lot of ants there. So this is where a lot of those 16 billion ants are living. but there's not a lot of other insects there. And so if you're an ant, that's your food source. So we've been trying to figure out, well, what are these ants eating? How are there so many that are living in the city? And so as a hint, we thought, maybe it's us. Maybe we're feeding them inadvertently, and we don't really think about how all of that trash we drop in the ground adds up. But it turns out it could potentially. And so this is a video you guys might be familiar with from 2015. This is Pizza Rat, world famous Pizza Rat. So we know that New York wildlife eats human food. But what was fascinating to me, because I'm an insect researcher, I thought, oh, surely people study this on rats, maybe pigeons. It turned out no, people had not done a lot of research on how animals eat human foods. And it turns out because it's hard to study, so we had to come up with a new technique. And so we borrowed a technique from human research, actually. So we looked at carbon-13. It's an isotope of carbon, and people had measured it in human hair, and you can tell whether you're an American or whether you're European based on your carbon-13 signature. And it turns out it's higher if a lot of the foods you eat come from grasses, which in our case is corn. And so the average American meal, fast food meal, is basically corn. So you have corn syrup, sweetened soda. You have French fries that it turns out a lot of times are actually fried in corn oil and dipped into sweetened ketchup with corn sugar. And then even the hamburger is corn-fed beef. So you get this corn signature through every aspect of the human fast food meal. And so it turns out we measured all of these 40 species of ants in Manhattan, and it turned out those 6 species that I pointed out, they're the ones that have this corn signature. So they actually, and it's the same degree. So an ant who lives in Manhattan in these really highly urban areas looks the same as a United States citizen compared to a European, which is kind of crazy. So our ants look like us. The newspapers in New York love us. They think it's really funny that North Carolinians go up there to study their ants. And so they made this image for one of the articles. And they called the ants their unpaid trash service. Ants are going around cleaning up stuff. And so we had another researcher in our lab who quantified this and found out that just on Broadway, ants are eating the equivalent of 60,000 hot dogs per year. So this is not inconsequential, and New Yorkers love this because every hot dog that an ant eats means that a rat doesn't eat it. So they're actually competing. They live in the same habitats, and so this is actually good news. They're doing something that's beneficial to humans. Ants don't carry human diseases for the most part, but rats do, like plague and things like that. And so other things we've been looking at now, it's not just what ants do for us, but maybe what else we can learn from ants and cool things they're doing. So this is a picture of an ant that has been parasitized by a mind-controlling fungus. I don't know, some of you guys might have heard about this. So there's these mushrooms that attack ants, and they get in their brain, and they tell them to leave the colony and climb up some blade of grass, and then just stay there. And then this mushroom grows out the back of their head, and then it rains the spores down on all their nestmates. And so this is just one of thousands of different pathogens that attack ants. Because they're like us, they live in really dense conditions, and they have a high chance of disease transmission. So for years, people predicted that they might produce really potent antibiotics. That's what we use to kill disease, right? So ants might as well. So we actually got funding last year from the Triangle Center for Evolutionary Medicine to study this in the ants of Raleigh. So I walked around downtown Raleigh and Durham some too, and we collected all the ant species we could. And we tested this, and it turned out 25% of all the species in Raleigh actually produced antibiotics, which is crazy. So now we're actually taking this forward and looking at maybe we can isolate some of these compounds, use them for humans. And then we're looking at the other 75% and seeing what the heck they're doing so they don't die from these things, which turns out is probably totally different. And so, sort of conclude, when you tell someone you're an ant biologist, the number one question you get asked is, what are these ants in my kitchen? And the answer is these. These are the ants in your kitchen. This is the odorous house ant. They're the most common ant in kitchens from here to Chicago. And so it's probably them. And then the next question that inevitably follows is, how do I kill them? And I can tell you that later. Maybe you can track me down. There's answers to that. But before you ask that question, I just ask that you consider, when we look at these, we see them as pests. But maybe if we don't look at them as pests, just try to think about the things that they're doing. They're cleaning up our garbage. They're keeping other insects that might bite us. They're killing them so they're not as high as abundances. And they might have a future medicine that will save your life. So I think they deserve some respect, even though they are kind of annoying in your kitchen sometime. So all right, thank you.
You want to ask a question? Okay. All right. Here you go.
Were you inspired by E.O. Wilson?
Yeah, so E.O. Wilson is the patron saint of ant scientists. If you don't know who he is, you should look him up. And I actually grew up right near where he grew up in southern Alabama. I grew up in the panhandle of Florida. And so, he's been doing research on ants for years. And one of the things we like to talk about, actually the data we collected in New York, years ago he came up with a statistic that if you took all the ants in the world and you put them on one side of a scale and weighed them, and you put all the humans on the other side of the scale, they'd about even out. Which is pretty crazy, right? So there's a lot of ants in the world. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. You said 25% of them produce some kind of antibiotic, and your focus is there, but why not focus on the 75% that don't produce it, because traditional antibiotics build resistance, and why not look at mechanisms that don't have those traditional resistant risks?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's literally exactly what we're doing. And so what we think now is that those other 75% are actually culturing beneficial microbes on them, and those microbes might be producing antimicrobials, or maybe they're out-competing pathogenics. And then we're also looking at things like surface structure. They have some interesting things going on with micro sort of nanostructures on ants. So that's exactly what we're looking at, and it's kind of a new way to think about how to address the antimicrobial resistance problem. Yeah.
Thank you, Clint. Bud. Nice job. So if you didn't know this, we do live stream these, and we do this every third Thursday of the month. So if you can't make it out, we live stream it to YouTube, so you can follow RTP. They tweet it out. They let you know where to go and check it out. So far, we have hit a record this evening of 11 people have watched it. We've also, that's huge. We're going viral. We also hit another record, 2 thumbs up on the live stream and 1 thumbs down. Pretty sure it was the ground beef joke. But all that to say, if you do find yourself in a situation where you can't make it next month or another month, check it out online. Miss Molly, are you ready? I gave you a hard time in the back room, so I'm so sorry about that. But if you would come up here, we would be so delighted to have you. I was giving her, she said, I don't know if I can get it under 5 minutes. And I said, well, you better. We're going to pull you off.
Said he's going to use a hook.
Got a hook. No triangle, a hook. Molly Stone Saper is a certified dog behavior consultant and a certified dog trainer. She has been the companion animal behavior specialist at the SPCA of Wake County since 2002. This is when I graduated high school. Sorry. That's one of those things where right when you say it, you're like, why do I say that? It's all unrehearsed. I'm so sorry. And I just said I was bad to you back there, now in front of 200 people. Well, you're probably the one that gave us the thumbs down on the live stream. She is also the vice president of the Companion Animal Sciences Institute, a member of the Pet Professionals Guild, and the Society of Animal Welfare Administrators. She's dedicated to the force-free animal training and behavior modification, and she's here today to tell us why. Please help us do a better job than I can welcoming Miss Molly to the stage.
That really is very nice. Thank you very much. So yes, that's true. I'm Molly Stone Saper. This is an inappropriately large photograph of me and my dog, April. And for the past 15 years, I've been at the SPCA Wake County doing their pet behavior consultation. And in all of that time, and for 10 years before that as a dog trainer in Raleigh, I have used only force-free dog training techniques. And that choice hasn't been made just because it's way, way nicer than the coercive dog training techniques that rely on pain and fear to cause learning. But as it turns out, it's objectively better in a bunch of different ways. Force-free training is faster, it's more effective, it's way less stressful, and I know this is blank, it's supposed to be blank, and it's a bunch more fun for everybody. So I'll give you an example. One commonly used method of teaching a dog to sit, just to sit in a coercive way, a force-reliant way, is to pull up with a lot of strong upward pressure on the dog's neck with a choke chain and push down with a lot of strong downward pressure on the dog's butt, like that. And then once the dog's butt hits the ground, you can release the strain on the choke chain, thereby restoring that dog's air supply. Isn't that nice? A less coercive, a less force-reliant way to teach a dog to sit is to take something special and important to that dog. We'll call this my fake bacon, fakin'. And you take that bacon and you hold it over the dog's nose like this. And then you move your hand this way towards the dog's tail. And that dog goes like this. And as his weight shifts back, his butt invariably hits the floor, and you say, good, and you give him that bacon, and that dog goes, well, what just happened there? So we have this dog over here who will learn to sit by being choked up and pushed down. And when she learns to sit, she'll learn to sit in order to avoid something crappy happening to her. And we have this dog over here who in very, very few repetitions, sometimes only one, will learn that this is a hand signal that means sit. And then he becomes like a sitting junkie. He can't stop sitting, he can't stop sitting. I'm sitting over here, hey, I'm sitting over here. And I say sit, and he's, did you say bacon? So it's pretty easy to see why the bacon way is nicer, but I want to tell you why it's faster. So suppose this dog over here, this choke and push dog, finds some aspect of that threatening for some strange reason. If she does, her brain is going to tell her that she is in danger. And when that happens, a whole bunch of stuff happens. Her brain starts sending out emergency, get the hell out of Dodge protocol business into her bloodstream. So there's stress cortisols, and there's other stress hormones, and there's neurotransmitters, and all of those things go into her body to tell her to flee. And when they do that, because an emergency is more important than new information is blocked. The learning center just gets dim because the brain can't handle an emergency and new information at the same time. If you're being charged by a rhinoceros, it's a bad time to try to memorize the Articles of Confederation. Your brain just can't do both things at the same time. So we're expecting this dog to learn a new sequence while we're making it as difficult for her to learn a new sequence as it can possibly get. And that means sometimes this kind of training takes a lot of repetitions, because that pattern can't get recognized through all the chaos, all the noise. And that pisses owners off because they start to think that their dog is a stupid lemon because it can't learn. It just can't learn. Why isn't my dog not learning? And you know why. It's not because the dog's a lemon, it's because the dog's brain thinks it needs to just keep that dog from getting dead. So that becomes a whole thing because then the angry owner sometimes becomes a more forceful owner, and that causes more, so you see where I'm going with that. So then we have this dog over here that we gave something, we showed him something that he loves, and then we lured him into a sit with it. Oh, I just broke it. Fixed it. All right. And when we lured him into a sit with it, then we gave him the thing, and he loved that experience a lot because, you know, it's bacon. And so his brain just stays in learning mode. It stays peaceful and calm and happy, like my little yoga guy. And when his brain is peaceful and calm and happy, it's wide open for new information. In fact, once a dog starts learning this way, they start looking for new information, because sometimes, you know, new information means bacon. And the jackpot that you get when you train this way is that this dog over here with the bacon, learns to throw behaviors at you because he wants to see what happens when he does it. And this dog over here, who gets trained in this coercive choke and shove way, learns to do behaviors because she's afraid of what's going to happen to her if she doesn't do it. So that dog, the bacon dog, his whole life is just happier. And you got a bunch of love going up. This just ricochets around like a bunch of joy. And this dog over here, this bacon dog that's trained in a force-free way, his face looks like this all the time. And there is literally nothing to not like about that. And that's it.
Two questions. 1. I see a few hands, okay. All right. There you go.
Except for you.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
a behavior analyst with a bad dog.
Oh, you probably already know how to fix it.
Exactly, but I get off the clock when I get home. How do you deal with force-free potty training?
It's really, really fun, and you'll love it. So, the cool thing about it is it works better than catching your dog in the act of doing it wrong and correcting him. Because that can teach your dog that he can't pee in front of you. So that means your dog goes like, well, shit, I gotta go sneak off to the guest room and pee, otherwise that woman's just gonna go bananas. So you do it like this. It's a little bit labor intensive. You go outside with your dog on a leash to the same spot every single time. And you're gonna have to stand around. You don't wanna walk and walk and walk, because then there's all this nose joy they get, and they just forget about peeing. So you stand stock still and be boring until your dog goes to the bathroom, and he eventually will. When that happens, when he's finished, you're gonna make the biggest deal out of it. You're gonna use the most nauseating mommy voice you can possibly muster, and you're gonna say 3 entire sentences of praise. And with each sentence, and it is important that it's 3, and it is important that it's nauseating, with each sentence, you release one tiny pea-sized morsel of something really compelling, like doggy crack. But not real crack, because you'll go to prison. So it looks like this. You wait and wait and wait, and then the dog pees, and then you go, who's the smartest and best boy I've ever seen in my entire life? Mommy loves you so much. I really, really think you're the best dog in the world. And it matters not what you say, of course. You can talk about politics. It doesn't matter, as long as it's nauseating. So what that dog learns is, holy crap, it's so much fun to pee outside in front of her. I'm gonna go find her and ask her if we can go out. That's how you do it.
I would tell you to drop the mic, but I own the mic, so just hang on to it. I'll get you one of RTPs. You can drop that one. Okay, I see. What you? Let me give a chance to somebody else who's. Okay, sorry. I want to make sure I include all the people that want to ask a question.
Hi.
Hi.
If a puppy was forcefully trained when it was really young, what kind of effect will it cause in the future when the puppy's older?
Oh, you can mess them up forever. I'm not joking about that. It can cause. We have 2 of the most qualified professionals in the world sitting here who can talk to you about this better than I can. But fear of people, fear of even leaving the one safe place they know. You can get phobias like that. They can become phobic of being handled and phobic of being touched, and super funny about letting anybody near their stuff. It can cause aggression. It's you can really, really break them. You can really, really mess them up. So that's depressing. That's so depressing. Okay.
Good?
I'm good.
All
yeah.
right. Thank you very much. Good job. All right, you animal people, you are not sneaky. You cannot log on to the live stream from here and increase our numbers and let us think. Like literally 3 people went on to the live stream. Not saying you guys did it in here, but I don't know how else people would have found out about it to immediately jump on. But whoever gave us another thumbs up, thank you very much. No more thumbs down, that's good, because I didn't tell a joke. All right, you ready? Certainly last but not least. Cali Gerber is the founding attorney of Gerber Animal Law Center, a North Carolina law firm dedicated to the protection of animals and their legal rights. She is also an adjunct professor of law at UNC School of Law, teaching animal law and a state-licensed wildlife rehabilitator. What do you do for fun?
Hang out with animals.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go.
It is almost impossible to follow this crew in front of me. Phenomenal. I thought Dr. Sherman was showing pictures from my house, first of all. I was a little worried until I saw the titles at the top, and I was like, oh, man, it's not my dog. Even though I do have a feral delinquent at home. And Molly knows from personal experience, unfortunately, because she's the one I call crying, saying, "Can you please help me? Because I don't know what to do." So, I'm the animal lawyer of the crew. What the heck is animal law? How many of you who didn't know me before today even knew there was such a thing as an animal lawyer? Oh, a couple. I'm impressed. You're probably more likely to win the lottery than meet an animal lawyer. And look at it, you got one right here in Raleigh. Animal law, for purposes of time constraint, is basically the law where the issue in controversy involves an animal. The end. It's amazing. If you've ever been in court, if you've ever watched court in person, or maybe even turned on the TV, you know that lawyers love to use science as evidence. They love to use behavior science as evidence. I'm not any different just because I deal with animals, but my budget is. I may even use behavioral animal science behavior more than anyone else because my clients can't testify. And that's what I'm left relying on. I've used animal behavior evidence in cases everything from wildlife, bear all the way down to opossum, to companion animals, basically cats and dogs, everything from animal cruelty to dangerous dog hearings. I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite clients. Why? Why, Cali, is he one of your favorite clients? First, he's exceedingly handsome. And who doesn't like that? Second, spoiler alert, I was given the privilege of saving his life. I'm going to tell you about Rugby. Rugby, when he was 5 years old, snuck out through the back gate while he was out playing, ran into the street, and bit a little girl riding her bike down the street. Badly. He had never been in trouble before. The county picked him up, charged him with dangerous dog, and said, "He's so dangerous, he has to die. We cannot even release him back into the community. He couldn't be safely contained." I'm going to let you guys guess a 5-year-old dog that's never been in trouble, never escaped from his yard, has one instance. What kind of dog do you think that was that they said he's too dangerous to be released in the community? What breed? What are your guesses? Second guess, anyone? Shih Tzu, good one. No. Rugby was a 5-year-old, overweight English Bulldog. And that is really him. I told you he was handsome. Unfortunately, what he did violated the law. He left his owner's property, inflicted a bite on a person, and caused severe injury. That means she had to get stitches for the wound. We admitted all of that. They didn't even have to prove it in the hearing. We were just arguing for his life. So we had people who had known him for years come in and testify. He goes out to events all the time. He's in the park. He loves people. He loves dogs. He loves kids. He's never shown aggression ever. We hired 2 independent trainers to assess him, behavior assessments. They both came in and said, he is a highly sociable dog. He's friendly. He's shown some signs that he'll chase, but he can be rehabilitated. And he most certainly can be contained. He's a fat bulldog. Unfortunately, the county's expert assessed Rugby as well. All 3 assessments happened in the shelter. She came in and testified. Rugby had no sociability. He had high prey drive, high arousal rate. He went from resting to lunging and biting in just a few seconds, or faster. Did you see the picture of him? She even testified he could not possibly be rehabilitated with training. 1 incident. She went further to say he couldn't safely be released back into the community. What am I going to do with that? How do I convince the hearing officer to listen to my expert that my client paid for over the county expert? I happen to know a lot about the test, so I cross-examined her. Did you do step 2 in between steps 1 and 3? No. Did you wait this required amount of time before you ever tested him? No. Well, when you substituted this for this in the protocol, where does it say you can do that? It doesn't. And inside, I said, that alone didn't mean I was going to win, but it meant I had an argument for the hearing officer. Because science requires you follow the protocol. If you don't follow the right steps with the test, your results are unreliable. No one had questioned the way our experts did the test. Therefore, I had an argument for him not to listen to his own expert. And I am happy to say, 4 years later, Rugby clearly has not missed a meal. But also, he has had no further incidents of aggression. He has had no further incidents of escaping from his home. And this month, he celebrated his 9th birthday. All thanks to science.
I feel like I would watch about a mid-afternoon local television, kind of like a Judge Judy sort of thing, just about animals. I'd watch that. I'd record it, I'd watch it.
We have been contacted by Judge Judy, some of my clients.
Yeah?
Yes.
Representing squirrels, all sorts of things. Yes.
So in your introduction, you mentioned something about using possum behavior in a case. I feel like there's a story there. What was that? Or something about a bear?
So that would be more so it's everything from cruelty to these dangerous dog hearings. When I'm trying to prove cruelty to an animal, I'll have an expert come in and talk about their behaviors, because when we're talking about behaviors being off, that can help show that cruelty is occurring, that the practice that's going in, that the things they're doing to the possum. If anybody wants to Google that case, Google possum drop, North Carolina. You will read all about it. It went on for several years. People ask me what my favorite case is. My favorite case was getting a bear out of a roadside zoo and sent to a sanctuary. Same thing, animal behavior science.
Thought we had a legit online question.
It was just a tease.
It was. Okay, I saw your hand.
It's probably my sister.
My mom watches every time. She doesn't. I'm just kidding. They're all.
Who do you think's doing the thumbs down? So one of the things that struck me about your story was sort of the way in which the deck is stacked by the state against the client, the animal. Can you talk about a little bit about sort of the challenges that people who might not be able to access an attorney with an expertise that you have might have in keeping their pets, defending their pets when they get out or are act in a way that might not be that might violate the law?
Sure. Of course, as a lawyer, I'd always like to have you hire a lawyer, but Rugby wouldn't have had a chance winning on the dangerous dog case. His family admitted he did everything that the law said he was a dangerous dog. Because a lot of my clients will come to me and be like, my dog's a therapy dog, or my dog's never been a problem, or he's around kids all the time, so he can't be dangerous. And I have to say, okay, it's like saying your dog's a purple dog. If your dog meets the definition in the law of purple, he may not really be purple dog, but under the law's name, he is purple. So you look to, if you individually were going to look at it, look at the law itself, because county ordinance are different than the dangerous dog law in the state. The dangerous dog law in the state would have just required him to be muzzled when he was off the owner's property. That's it. It was the county that wanted to euthanize him. So if you look at the specific requirements of whatever ordinance your animal or your friend's animal might be charged with, see if any of those you can call into question. I had a case once where they charged under a subsection A. We got into the hearing and they started arguing about subsection B. I had already won the case on subsection A. I would have lost the case on subsection B. But there's this constitutional thing. You have a right to know what you're being charged with. So if you know the law, what you're charged with, and you go in with your arguments, that's going to be your best chance. And certainly finding trainers or experts to come in and testify can also be expensive in sometimes. These 2 trainers were very inexpensive to hire. So it's important to have them know what to testify to. Saying your dog's a good dog is not going to get them a not dangerous dog. And also, as Molly would tell you, probably anyone, a behavior assessment is just a snapshot of how they're behaving at that particular time. It's not a guarantee they're not going to do something in the future. It's not a promise they won't ever bite anybody else. The good thing with our behavioral assessments is they match to the testimony of all the people. And prior behavior tends to be a good indicator of future behavior, even though it's not a guarantee.
All right, how about a hand for all of our speakers this evening? Absolutely, absolutely crushed it. 2 quick announcements that I would like to make while I have your attention before free t-shirts. Next month, I'm not going to click this. Next month, RTP180, June 15th, is all about design. And Anna has clued me in on a few folks who will be here. Don't miss it. It's going to be awesome, just like tonight was. And then next up, Anna, if you'll advance it, I don't want to mess it up. They're going to start holding monthly workshops here in the Frontier. So the first one is going to be how to run a PowerPoint slide presentation. But if you have an idea noodling around in your head and you want to know how do you get that out, how do you patent that, the first workshop is going to be all around Patenting 101. That is May 23rd, 8:30 to 9:30 in the Fusion Room, which is right back there. So every month, and it's going to rotate through different workshops and topics. Of course, tonight would not be complete, 1, without all of you, 2, without the help of RTP and the lovely ladies that work this event that help us out, and 3, without a good joke, right? Okay. Giant delay on the microphone. Okay, because somebody actually on the live stream asked for one more joke. And what do you call a bear without teeth? Somebody, yeah, gummy bear. Who said that? You are so smart. And I cannot throw. Again, yep, so you're supposed to kind of want these. I'm just throwing them out to, it's like a hand grenade. Jeez. I'll do these quickly. So, you're supposed to also pay attention so I don't hit you in the face. Oh yeah, that went up and over the rafters.